You're listening to What Would Jesus Tech? A conversation with three friends about how to honor God and use technology in our technologically advanced and increasingly advancing age. My name is Austin. I'm the social media manager for the Gospel Coalition, and I am joined with Andrew Noble. Andrew, what are you doing these days? I hear something about a Dr. Andrew Noble in the works, perhaps?
Yeah, I'm working on my PhD. We're going. I'm done 15,000 words now, so
wow,
that's fun. And I still serve at my church, Grandview Church. It's one of the 3 podcasts that I co-host now. We're going through the whole New City Catechism in 52 weeks, 52 questions, every week, 15-minute episodes. So this episode has been brought to you by Grandview Churches, Thinking About It, Thinking About the Faith podcast, where we're doing a podcast there. Link in the show notes. And the Grandview Church is not going to pay us money, but
that's okay.
Clearly.
It's a good plug.
What are you doing, Austin? You're still doing TGC stuff, right?
I sure am. Yeah, I've been on vacation for the past 2 weeks, and then I start back on Monday. We also have Joel Jacob joining us. Joel, you are still, last time I checked, it's been a year, technically. You are product at Splunk, is that right?
That's right, and Splunk has actually been acquired by Cisco, so it's Splunk, a Cisco company, which is a data analytics company, so now it's not just data analytics for security and IT, which is what Splunk traditionally focused on. It's for everything Cisco is into. So it's a big shift in things that we can address, but it's exciting. I'm working on edge intelligence, AI, industrialization, all of the exciting meme stuff trending on X these days. So me and my tech bros are having a good time.
At some point, we should do an episode on the intersection between meme culture and AI, because I think there's much more overlap there than people give it credit. But that's not what this episode is about. This episode is the first episode of the year of our Lord 2025, and we have some predictions about tech and media for this coming year. But before we each go into a couple of predictions we have about big things we're going to see this year, as the new member of WWJT, I want to know, Andrew and Joel, how did your 2024 projections turn out? How many of them were y'all right on, and how many of them were you wildly off base on?
So Joel and I both came into predictions last year. I think Joel did extremely well, scary good. And I was kind of off on some of them. We'll go through the 7 that we made. Rise of multimodal AI. Joel, that's a yes. That definitely happened, right?
Yeah, you have all the vision models coming out. I still think, in my eyes, it wasn't where I envisioned it, but we're just still heading down that path.
You said rise, not like a huge, it's not
That's
everything.
True.
But it is multimodal. All of a sudden, OpenAI demoed last year the live video input into ChatGPT, all that kind of stuff. It's happening. Gemini is here. It's doing all that stuff. We'll probably talk about that in terms of our predictions with 2025. So that definitely happened. So 1 for 1. 2, the increasing artificiality of the internet and an associated pull towards embodied relationships. I 100% think this is happening. I heard
agree
2 weeks ago, or however many weeks ago, Zuckerberg and his team be like, yeah, we're going to put AI bots all over Facebook. So that's going to happen. So we definitely got that right. Increasing artificiality of the internet. 3, a small uptick in metaverse adoption. Joel, I need your take on this. Do you think that happened last year?
I think we were really talking about the Vision Pro headset. It hadn't been announced, and it came out and it was definitely a flop. And the Meta glasses, released a little bit more stealthily, and it has been a wild success for them. So I'm going to call that a mixed bag. It came out in a way that we probably didn't imagine it.
Right.
You still aren't hearing everyone be like, I'm going to go onto the metaverse. But in some communities, people are being like, okay, yeah, this is something up and coming, which maybe we'll talk about in 2025.
Yeah, and we, to be fair to us, small uptick is different than mass adoption. So we were good with our goals there, with our predictions, I'd say. So I'd give us 3 for 3. I'm just going to be generous to ourselves. Okay, then 4th, a big tech leader will become a Christian. Now, we did not see a true 100% conversion of the soul, though Elon Musk has now started to proudly call himself a cultural Christian, which I do think is interesting. Does that count?
I don't think so. I
don't
I
think it
don't think
counts.
so. I don't think
Yeah.
so for the sole reason. I mean, going back to AI and meme culture, like there is a unique brand of cultural Christianity that exists in like meme culture right now,
Mm,
and I think not AI. I think Elon is more tapping into that than what we think of when we hear the phrase cultural Christian. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally off base on
no,
that. But
I agree with you. It's whether you call it meme culture, there is a general culture of like a Muslim calling themselves evangelical because they voted for Trump.
right,
Like
yes,
there's a weird sort of social demographic that there's that. And that's more small. And then there's maybe a broader, like the Tom Holland, Elon Musk and others who would call themselves, and even
yeah,
Richard Dawkins said, like, I think culturally we are Christian nations. Like you can't look at history and be like these developed
haha,
nations in the West were not birthed through Christian values. Like it's just you
right,
just have to look at the hard facts of history. So yeah, so there's more people that are coming to terms with that, but that is not becoming a Christian. So I think I
agreed.
failed. This is my prediction. We do
I
not
mean,
fail.
it's a
There,
good, hopeful prediction, and I'm
it's a
going to
good
hope for
hopeful
it in
prediction.
2025, you know?
Yeah, if it
Yes.
didn't happen last year, maybe it'll happen this year, and that's certainly something that Christians of all points of their
I don't know
love
if
or
we
hate, love or hate of the technological spectrum should be praying for. Even
You
Yes.
know, something interesting,
Yes.
and we didn't mention it, but Gary Tan, he's leading YC. He is becoming more of an influential big tech leader, and he is Christian and had become Christian later in
okay.
his life. So we can talk about that later.
Yeah, that's good.
Well,
Um,
let's go ahead and dive into our predictions.
wait. There's more. There's
Oh,
more. We're
oh,
only
what?
done
Let's do more. Let's
Florida.
do more. We
There
have a
was
Florida.
lot of
more.
predictions.
So
I
inflection
thought.
point for robotics. We didn't. Uh, that one's iffy. And
There's a whole
then
China angle here with like the 1600 robotic dog. But
okay, the new analog dating app, a wildly specific prediction that I made last year. You can listen to the episode and cringe at that. It didn't happen. But
that didn't happen.
dating apps, people hate dating apps. That is true. That continues to be true. And seven, the crypto winter ends. So Joel made a huge prediction last year. He's like, nah, Bitcoin, you gotta like get into it.
To the
It's a
moon.
big deal. Like Bitcoin was, I don't know, a quarter of the value that it is now.
Yeah.
Like if people
Yeah.
listen to that podcast and listen to Joel and not my response to Joel, but just listen to Joel and invested in crypto, they would have made a lot of money. Right?
I think it was like 25 to 30,000 when we did the recording, and then it obviously hit 100,000 quite recently. So you could have 4x'd your investment, which
Yep.
some
So
people
listen
did.
to
I mean,
Joel, not
I
me.
have crypto money.
When
I
it
will
comes
talk about crypto again today, so stay tuned.
Well, on that note, then I'm dying to hear y'all's predictions. I've got mine. Andrew, let's go ahead and hear your top predictions for 2025. What do you think is going to happen this year?
Well, I'm very curious about Joel's response to this because I do think there will be a rise in AI agents. I don't think you can talk about 2025 and what is coming without talking about these agents that are going to do functions on your behalf through various means. So the idea of an agent is like instead of just you inputting code into something and then or inputting text or audio or whatever, like think about the Amazon Alexa in your home or Siri on your phone. You input something and then you get something back, but it's really only answering your question or responding to your prompt. Maybe it's using its database or whatever. So basically, what these agents will do is not a single response, but it will do multiple steps and then get back to you. So it will not simply go to various websites, but it will even contact people on your behalf, make phone calls on your behalf, or do multi-steps and then return to you. And so that's what all these companies are talking about. And it will be quite disruptive. So I listened to one interview with the CEO of Microsoft, and he says it's basically going to end software as a service companies as a whole, because software as a service is just a layer on top of a database. So I worked in SaaS, like I worked in an HR SaaS company. I'm very familiar with software as a service. And if when you think about it, yeah, it really is just an interface between a database and users from various different perspectives. And in the future, with these multi-step AI machines, they're going to do one step interacting with the database, and then another step interacting with the prompt, and then other steps interacting with other databases, and doing all the logic within those AI machines rather than relying on the programming, the software to do that. So I think that's very interesting. And that's
Yeah. Yeah, AI is definitely also my top prediction, so I can loop mine in here. I think agentic AI is definitely going to be something that comes out 2025. We see more of the real deployments of it. I think actually maybe like 3-4 months ago, I was talking to people who are like, yeah, how are we developing agentic AI, etc. But I think like if I take a step back from that and just look at like AI broadly, we are probably in the third or fourth inning of this like new AI boom, which is like this like cloud data center, like NVIDIA AI correlated LLM boom. But then we're still in the early innings of like, say, taking that model and like compacting it down to the edge, which is kind of the area that I'm focused on. So we're like in inning one of that. So I think that is going to be a trend of not only like agentic agents, but also AI running outside of the data center, which is going to still continue to increase, but you're going to have like AI running locally on your phone or your laptop or on the edge. So I think those nodes are going to start coming out a little bit more this year, and you're going to kind of see how they kind of connect back to the mothership, which is like AI in the cloud. So I think this more, evolution of AI into a little bit more of a robust architecture. And I think that just ties to where the value of this like AI is going to accrue. You have like a 3-layer cake right now. You have the silicon, which is like NVIDIA, right? They're making all the GPUs, they're making all the money in the AI boom right now. Then you have the foundational models, which is like the big tech players. So OpenAI, Meta, Google, they're all
Anthropic.
compete. Anthropic, they're all like, okay, we're taking foundational models. And then you have the application layer, which is like people saying, hey, I'm going to take this and I'm going to apply it to, I don't know, like photos or, Photoshop or something like that.
Medicine, whatever.
So yeah, what all the people in the application layer have been doing, these like the companies, they're like, I'm going to build a system where I can just swap out the foundational models to whoever is like coming out with the latest one. So I'm not tied to one. And then Meta being open source is really like allowing people to be like, I'm going to build on top of that. So I think, the application layer is really going to be the winner again. Just like how SaaS won building on top of internet, you're going to have another application layer on top of AI in 2025. You'll see that.
Fascinating.
Andrew, what's your next prediction? Keep this moving along.
Yeah, I know we only have limited time. So I think that there's going to be a rise in tech polarization. That's how I'm framing it. So I think there's already a various amounts of polarization in our culture more generally. And I've been interested as you dive into this very large cultural area of technology, the different perspectives that exist within it. And I think Christians in particular are struggling with how do we respond to the things that we just mentioned, all these AI, these things. And there's some Christians who have what I call big Wendell Berry energy. They're all about
yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
They're all about going back to the garden, not realizing that no, the picture is a garden city in Revelation. So there's some aspects of the garden that we need to respect and retrieve, but we need a healthy tech skepticism without nostalgia. And I think in a growing polarized environment online where there's either effective accelerationists or the tech builders or whatever, or the skeptics who are like, oh, the AI improvements aren't that significant or whatever. We need to just come to terms with reality, and that A lot of people are using ChatGPT on a regular basis now. That did not exist 5 years ago. That's a huge change in the ways that people are thinking, interacting with their own thoughts as they do assignments and papers. And it's not just in school, but in life as we're getting it to write emails for us. There's a lot of change that is happening. So much so that it becomes very easy to adopt either a tech skeptic posture or a tech optimist posture. And I think we're going to see an increasing in polarization, but also an increasing need for wisdom to navigate this and to be hopeful rather than anxious, to be present rather than retreating, to have a healthy skepticism without nostalgia, to be engaged without fully adopting every new object. We need to really pursue this. I'm obviously passionate about this. I'm passionate about our podcast for doing this. And I see an increasing need for it because the changes are going to keep coming. And I think change happens so gradually, like the stereotypical frog in boiling water, that you just don't realize what's going on until all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I'm not actually present with my family because I'm thinking about this. I'm interacting with this technology so much that I'm losing my presence. So anyways, there's going to be polarization, and Christians are not easily fit into a tech skeptic or tech optimist category, in my opinion. They shouldn't be. I know some Christians go towards extremes, but we need to kind of like be present, and the ones that are the wise ones in the room. That's my hope.
Yeah, and I think when I look at the landscape right now, especially like in the landscape of the worlds that you and I live in, Andrew, I think there's a lot of I'm just going to call it denial that we are deeper along into digital Babylon than I think people want to accept. And I think a lot of that big Wendellberry energy is born from a refusal to recognize that this is already happening. Like the first shoe has dropped. It's only a matter of time before the second shoe, whatever that is, drops. If we were to plot this in the exile narrative, we are deep in Jeremiah at this point, event-wise. Jerusalem has not fallen, but you've got a lot of people, a lot of false prophets, and I'm not calling anybody a false prophet. Don't hear me say that. We got a lot of people saying like, oh, this exile is going to last for 2 years, and then the Lord will restore the exiles back to Jerusalem, and the Babylonian threat will go away. No, that is not where we're at right now, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on that.
Yeah,
So
I'm learning a lot of
judgment. Like, sorry,
I kind of do.
I think God is judging us through bad tech, through the social media addiction. It's basically like these are the new idols that God, as in Deuteronomy 4, says you're going to turn away from me. And then the consequence for the action in Deuteronomy 4:27 is, and you will seek after idols, and in your searching you will hope for God. And so God actually, in response to idol seeking, says you're going to keep seeking idols, and you will learn through that experience essentially your growing need for God.
Yeah, that's good.
That's what exile is.
That's a whole podcast out there. The new idols that are coming. I mean, there's an article about robots and all that, and we're going to see more and more of them taking that relationship space, and then that's like an idol where, anyways. So this is I'm getting a lot of learnings when I hear the terminology that you guys use, because it's in a completely different bubble than I'm in. So I think, to riff off that bubble analogy, I think you're right that we are going to continue to see these like maybe not factions, but I think you are going to see more of this polarization. I think like with the political election that happened in America and the one that's coming in Canada, we're going to continue to see like, okay, more of even like, in tech, a pro innovation. Like, I don't know if you guys saw, but a bunch of people in Silicon Valley who are traditionally Democratic are like, hey, you know what? We're Republican now.
Yes.
And there's this like big flip where Republican Party is like shifting into
one of the most underreported on stories from the election was just how much the tech industry went for Trump. Like far more than anybody could imagine would have happened.
Yeah. So I think that realignment into these new like factions of like pro innovation, pro technology, and then people being like, well, if I don't fit into that, where do I fit? And like trying to re-figure out where they fit. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's happening. Okay, we got to keep moving though. So who's
Was that
next, Joel or Austin?
were those
You got
your
one more,
predictions?
right?
No,
Yeah,
I only
got
did
one
two.
more.
I only did two.
Okay.
I was like, no, I can't. Those are the ones that I know for sure, and I didn't want to do any wildly specific dating app ones that are cringe. Forgive my January 2024 self.
So Joel,
Okay,
you gave one already, right?
yeah, I gave an AI one.
Okay. I will give I have two that are kind of a pair. I'll give the
Okay.
the one that's not part of a pair. Uh, I think the currently unfolding news about the honey scam is going to have seismic is too small of a word, like genuinely like apocalyptic repercussions for commerce and the internet. Like I think that is
Interesting.
going to crack open things we did not think could be cracked open in the way that the creator economy and the internet like relate to each other as abstract groups. Because the extent of this scam, I'm working on an article on this right now. I'm trying to expedite
walk
it
me
to.
through. Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I could cover the scam in the
Yeah, I
space
know
of
the
time that we
scam,
have.
but like what are the
No,
implications?
but we got to do the basics of what the scam is.
Sure,
Okay,
the basics of this scam is that Honey, a tremendously popular website browser extension, it has like 17 million installs. It supposedly scours the internet for the best coupon codes that exist for nearly any product and for use on nearly every website. Was not only stealing affiliate revenue from content creators using affiliate links, they were also defrauding their customers by quietly working with businesses and offering to businesses the ability to set in advance the coupons that Honey supposedly goes and finds for you. So if there's a 15% off discount code that exists somewhere and a business goes to Honey and says, well, we want you to only give them a 5% discount code. Honey, in the name of finding the best, discount code, will only give customers the 5% discount code.
So it's lying, it's stealing,
it is
breaking multiple commandments.
I'm like the scale of this scam. This broke a couple days before Christmas. The scale and the extent of this is about as comprehensive and touching every corner of the internet as possible. There's not a single corner of the internet that's not affected by this. And I think
so I heard about the scam, but I wasn't hearing like the connection. So I'm really interested. Like, how does it connect to like all of the creator economy and internet?
Oh, well, if you're trying to make money through sponsorships and through partnerships with other organizations, and they give you an affiliate link to recommend or promote a product, and you get a financial incentive for people using that link, they use that link, they buy the product, you get a cut of the sales or whatever. Honey was stealing that kickback.
Yeah. So you think creators will thrive by cutting out honey or something like that?
Oh yes. There's a big YouTuber named Devin Stone. He goes by the name Legal Eagle. He's already filed a class action lawsuit against PayPal. And that's the thing, is Honey is owned by PayPal. So this is not just some random internet startup. This is a subsidiary of one of the most important financial institutions in the world. And that's bad. That's just bad. Like that's a degree of deception and fraud.
I use PayPal for
I gotta sell my PayPal stock.
Yeah, like dude, it's time. It's a good time to get out. Like once Discovery hits, it's not going to be pretty. So that's my first prediction, is that as this continues to get round. I mean, it's not even been in the news for even 2 weeks at this point. Like as this continues to get out and as lawsuits start pouring in, we can't even begin to predict the domino chains that are going to start falling from this. I think this is going to be this is interesting. This is not just going to be the biggest scam in YouTube history. This is going to be one of the biggest scams in the history of the internet to date.
That is interesting. It's a good prediction. 2025. Okay, I'll give you one Andrew's staying around for the crypto prediction here. I think that crypto is going to continue to grow, right? I think you can have people, especially after like 3 or 4x's from the bottom last year, people could be like, okay, now it's time to like sell, it's going to go down. But when you actually look at the underlining factors, which is a president and establishment that is now pro crypto, who's going to cut through this ambiguous, like, we don't know how you're going to be regulated, and all these companies are like, oh, we can't innovate. That's going to be like streamlined through. Then you're going to have things like stable coins. There's something called USDC, which even like companies around the world are using these stable coins to reduce foreign exchange risk. So they take payments in alternate currencies, they convert to stable coin, then they can use that stable coin as a hedge against fluctuations, and then eventually convert that into US dollars. So stable coins, which is a crypto coin, are increasingly being very popular. And I think in this year, you're going to actually start seeing people actually start using it. It's still going to be a smaller amount of people, but people are finally going to have some utility in this crypto technology that came out, many years ago, and people were like, it's going to do all this stuff, and it never really amounted to stuff. Part of that is because of all the regulatory burden that like avoided people from innovating. So I think you're going to actually see crypto being used. X is potentially going to come out with financial elements in their app. They're obviously going to include cryptocurrency. I think a bunch of these dominoes are setting it up that maybe it's not going to skyrocket, but you will continue to see it to grow. And I think so one of the things in the last prediction I was saying is that there is something called the Bitcoin halvening, which happened in April. And that led to making the compute to crack a crypto blockchain harder. And that often leads to this like growth in the token because it's harder to get a token. So that happened. And then following that, it's happened every cycle since, it does gradually continue to grow again. So I think you have a bunch of these conflating, patterns and forces that makes it very hard to bet against crypto in 2025.
I would echo that. I would say as someone who's been pretty skeptical of crypto over these past several years, I think there's been enough development and the point where that skepticism has softened to where like, okay, maybe this does have a shot, especially as you were talking about, Joel, with like the use in providing hedge against risk for international currency fluctuations. Like, okay, that's a big deal. Like, enough as time has passed from crypto's connection to NFTs and the disaster that was to
Right.
where like legitimate use cases are now starting to be appealing to even skeptics like myself.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Andrew, I see you're still on the fence here.
The fundamental use cases are not that persuasive. The reality of it needing regulation for it to do well kind of goes against one of the fundamental pillars of cryptocurrency, is that it doesn't need government. And like I just have seen in Canada the way that Trudeau like went into Bitcoins, like into the pockets of cryptocurrency when it was supposed to be safe, in order, like, it's like the government still have control. And so the fundamental premise of Bitcoin, it's like, no, it's just an investment vehicle. It's just a way to transfer money. It's not that big of a deal. The hype is overblown. It's like a useful thing to do a few simple things, but that's it. It's just a very technically fun way to share and invest money. But that's it. It's not going to change the world.
Andrew's taking the same bet he took last year.
well, that's like, I'm not denying that you could make a bunch of money off of it, but it's like, talk about meme culture. Like there is nothing more slimy and like marketing scheme type stuff than some of these Bitcoiners.
Yeah, the rug pulls.
Agreed.
That exists. But that's why the regulation is important, right? It's not that, like you said, Bitcoin doesn't need regulation, but in the absence of regulation, it's this Wild West where like people get
Yes.
hurt
Screwed.
and like companies don't know if they can build something because they're going to get sued or this and that. So like, it's not that the technology needs regulation. It's that the people who are interfacing with the technology need regulation.
The actors in the space need
Mm-hmm.
guardrails that if they do certain things, they will be punished for it.
Yeah.
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 I think there's the whole Bitcoin for God and all that. Like there's a whole meme culture there. They have
I don't know about this.
Bitcoin for
no,
God.
they have conferences. They have Jonathan Lehman spoke at their last conference.
Let's go.
They're like,
is this the next?
It's a real thing.
Is this the current iteration of like the Christian Minecraft server? Like, is
Oh my
yes,
gosh!
but it's more pure. But it definitely leans into the meme culture. And there's a certain type of person that can be good.
You should put that in the Discord. Which, by the way, dear listeners, we do have a WWJT Discord that is free for anyone to join. You can come hang out with us and talk with us about any tech media related topics that you want. So I think Andrew should put some of that in there. I think that'll generate some fun conversation.
All of these things I'm learning about today, I did not know about these cultures. So you gotta post at the very least, so I can be educated that there's a Thank God for Bitcoin group.
Yeah, that's it. The Thank God for Bitcoiners. Like they're legit in terms of like it's been funny because they're like pushing Bitcoin hard and they see it as this way to invest in Christian institutions, as a way to like literally save financially.
Yeah, I mean,
so many Christian, because they're gonna have all the money. As part of this
whole scheme, right? Again.
But like, so I love James Wood. He's a professor at Redeemer University, and he just responded to them like being like, "Great, here's a link to donate to Redeemer University," like, and it's just like, love it. Like, you guys want, like, because I do think I am actually quite interested in. I've been talking with Ian Harbour about this recently. Like, how do you monetize in today's economy? Like, what does it look like to support Christian institutions? Like, what's our philanthropic vision and methods? I very much resonate with Tim Keller's insights on how to prepare for the West, or how to renew the West. He wrote a series of articles that was put into a short book, and there's an audio version of it if you want to listen to it on a podcast. It basically goes through what his vision were for like 7 principles of what we should do, like catechesis, all these different things. But one of the things that he says is an overarching concern that impacts all 7 is philanthropy. We need to figure out as Christians how to raise money. Yeah, one of the things we need to do is have like Christians working in tech, making a ton of money, and then donating to good Christian institutions.
Agreed.
Like I genuinely think, like, I'm saying both and. What you do in making good tech that serves your neighbors is glorifying to God. So is making lots of money to donate to Christian organizations. Agreed. That is also glorifying to God. Both and. I am not saying you are only worth it because of your pockets. I'm saying both. And there are people who have worked at Christian organizations to raise money for those organizations, and then have realized to themselves, I could make more money than what I'm working full-time. I'm paid full-time to like call all these people to say, please donate with your, retirement. Please donate. And what they do is they're like, no, I'm just going to work in tech, make $250,000, and then donate a ton of that to Christian charities. And there is a world with that.
Yeah.
So that's a pod. There's a big pod there.
That's a pod right there. Andrew, I think you are about reaching the point where you're going to have to dip off. Do you have any last parting words for 2025 before Joel and I finish out our predictions?
Do not idolize technology. And increasingly that will be the temptation. But I actually see that as like a 2027 like thing, or 2028, is that's when AGI will be more real. And that's when like truly people will be worshiping like whatever ChatGPT becomes. You're going to buy in 2028, you're going to buy a physical device, whether it looks like a human or a pet or a person, and people will bow down to worship it. It will not be like metaphorical idolatry. It'll be literal worship and service of our tech lords.
We'll have to revisit this in 2028.
We will
see if your prediction holds out.
it lines up nicely with when my thesis will be further developed.
There we go.
So-
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
in theory, I should be done my PhD research right in time for AGI. And that'll
AGI
be...
is here, man. AGI is here
No,
this
it's
year.
not. Okay, you guys figure out that. I gotta go.
All right, talk
See
later.
ya. Alrighty, so Joel, what is your second prediction?
Oh, so AI is the first. Crypto is definitely the second. The third,
Third then,
I'll
okay.
jump into, is also similar to kind of what Andrew was mentioning, is a longer term horizon thing. But I do think we've started scratching the surface of that AR, VR slight uptick.
Yeah.
Maybe the prediction really is that it continues in another slight uptick. And I'll give you kind of the calculation here. So the Meta glasses were really, they tapped into a vein, into something that people really
Agreed.
liked.
I agree. And I hate
I
Meta.
went on.
Like I despise Meta as an organization, but they're onto something.
Honestly, they had a whole rebirth. Like he talks different, he dresses different. So,
yeah.
He's pushing open source now.
Yep.
And he's like, I'm ready to forgive him of his past failings, and hopefully that social media era is just like the ugly teenagerhood of this company.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. But what they're doing with vision is pretty impressive. So I mentioned I went down to Florida for the holidays, and I had my glasses with me, and I was able to just like not pull out my phone to take pictures.
Yeah.
And have like moments of kids, just like take pictures, take videos, just like be there. And you also notice like the kids, they know they're not being recorded, right?
Mhm.
So they can actually act more natural. Like my kids, they're 5 and 3. They know what a phone is. They'll take the phone. They'll take pictures. They're getting good at that now. But it like their whole demeanor will shift when it's like, okay, we're like taking pictures time, or like stuff like that. So
like
this
even
whole making it more. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, even my son is a little over 6 months old now. I mean, he reaches for both my wife and I's phone, and we do what we can to like keep our phone out of sight, out of mind when we're with him and around him. Like we try to consciously avoid that. But even more of a problem than our phones, and we didn't anticipate this, is he goes after our watches. Like he loves our Apple Watches. Like he just wants to eat them. That's his thing right now, is just putting his mouth.
I want it.
I want it. I want to eat it. I want to taste it, including your Apple Watch. And yeah, I agree. I paid attention to the Meta Glass stuff when they were starting to really tease that stuff back in October. And I would want one of those if it weren't made by Meta. Like that's right. Like I'm sold. Like I would genuinely have one of those if it were made by someone not named Meta.
Yeah, and I think, look, there is going to be competitors that come out, like Apple with the Vision Pro. They have to wholly rethink their plans.
I think so too.
They're going to be like, okay, this is what's actually winning. They had that Meta Orion, right? The one with like the display that they said, hey, this is maybe like 5 years down the road. It's a couple $1,000s. It's a prototype right now. What I think is a 2025 or maybe 2026 prediction is that they'll have this incremental in between. It would be nice to have like some minimal display, some sort of like, okay, here's actually the box that you're taking a picture on, or like here's like some like heads up display, just minimal details. I think that would be the next iteration, and I think that gets them closer to what is probably even more valuable, is this whole software overlay. So the apps that are going to use these, like, here's a cooking app, here's this app, and all of that creator economy, that if they can have, let's say, this new Meta app store that developers start building on, that's a huge competitive push with Apple. So there's a big fight here, and we'll see who can take that VR to the next, AR VR to the next level.
I am much more interested in AR than I am in VR. I liked the thought of the Vision Pro for the sole. I mean, literally, this is the only thing I was interested in the Vision Pro for, was the sole ability for it to be like a spatial extension of my MacBook. That was the only thing about the Vision Pro that interested me. I did not care about anything else that it could do, and was not interested in it. but I also don't want to put a funky pair of goggles on my head that require me to be tethered to a power supply. Like the thought of having something that is as light on my face as the glasses that I already wear that can meet some of that spatial interactivity needs that I would like to have, that's tremendously appealing to me. And I think that's going to be tremendously appealing to a lot of people who want to be more engaged, but know that whether life or work is permanently intertwined to some of these things that we have to look at a phone screen for now. Like, we can wish that weren't the case, but it just is. And I hate that, but it's true. And I like AR as a potential improvement. It'll introduce its own side effects.
Improvement to the current state.
It'll have its own problems. It'll introduce its own side effects, things that we can't fully predict. But if given the choice between a world where we are all like looking down, glued at a small rectangle, and all being able to like function and interact with each other as though we were wearing glasses, just with some additional information filtering through that, I think one of those worlds is better than the other, even if neither are perfect.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think there'll be an incremental, something they recently did was they improved the AI agent on the current glasses. So the software got better. So you can actually ask it to do timers and stuff where before you couldn't. So I think there's going to be something coming out hands-free, less disruptive in 2025 in this space.
That sounds exciting. That genuinely sounds exciting. So hopefully your prediction bears out on that.
Right. So you got a twin prediction.
I got a pair of predictions. They're both social media related, and so they're one of the things I'm going to spend some time writing on this year is that the internet in general, but also social media specifically, is big enough to where like really any and every fear or prediction about things that are going to happen on the internet or happen on social media are true. Meaning that these are big enough for multiple divergent trends to be happening and be legitimate trends that are happening. Mm-hmm. So the tapping into that, I think, as my second prediction, I think Jonathan Haidt's work on cell phone use in schools is going to explode after a year of the first wave of kind of adopters of stricter phone use policies in schools during school hours, during classrooms, after we have a full school year or several semesters worth of data on the contrast between how does this policy impact education, how did it impact learning environments. Once that data gets collated and distributed more widely, I expect that to rapidly explode. I think that will take off across the country, across the West, Canada, Europe. I think that's going to really become the beginning of the new norm. I don't think it's all going to happen like within 2025. Like that's not my prediction, that this is all going to be complete by the end of the year. But I think we're going to reach that tipping point sometime this year.
More restrictive policies.
And yes, where that becomes maybe not the majority policy, but it becomes more of a believable, viable option for schools to legitimately consider. Like, it goes from being this like kind of far-fetched, like this would never work and it's not worth our time to implement this, to, oh, this does work and maybe it is worth our time to implement and enforce this. We should actually consider this. Like, that's the tipping point that I'm predicting.
Yeah, I agree.
That said,
I agree with that one.
Yeah, so that's the first prediction. The second prediction is I predict that social media's share of the internet, or social media's real estate, for the lack of a better metaphor, is going to continue to increase. I do not think social media usage is going to go down in any way, shape, or form. I think it is only going to continue to grow. And here's why. There is a lot of good momentum happening about cell phone use in schools, and a desire and a drive for uh, embodied relationships, things like that. Like these are all legitimate things that are happening, legitimate movements that are taking place. But social media as an industry is expanding to the point that things that were once previously not seen as social media are going to take on more and more social media like qualities, to where even people who leave, quote unquote, old school social media or traditional social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, will still be participating in social media through Discord servers, through iMessage group chats, as they continue to just add more functionality to that. Like there's more and
Interesting.
more, like social media as an industry is expanding beyond kind of the old era of social media that we've always known. And like it was the big four early on, and now it's TikTok and YouTube are now added to the constellation. But if we were to expand how we conceive of social media beyond platforms specifically, like whether or not you're using a certain platform or not determines whether you're using social media, and we were to define social media in terms of activities, then I think social media is going to continue just a massively meteoric ascent as
Yeah.
people
No.
learn to re-engage with the real world and find a place for the working relationships or social relationships or entertaining relationships, the relationships that they thrive on digitally. And even if the number of social media users posting content continues to decline, and it is declining, there's much more AI schlock on Facebook right now than I think there are real people posting content. Social media users have not actually decreased. They've just shifted to private channels. They've, like, group messaging and DMs are the current meta for social media right now. Like
Right.
group messaging is the biggest it's ever been, but it's not just public newsfeed content anymore. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of like like making social media defined by activity, and not so much like, do you have a Facebook account? Do you have an Instagram account? Like, how often
Yeah.
do you, like, and stuff like that. Like, I think we're going to move beyond that. And I think we already have in some parts of the tech sector and in the cultural sector. But even though phone usage, so this is where the pair connects, even though I think there's going to be this movement of decreasing phone usage in schools, which I am 1,000% in favor of. I couldn't be more strongly in favor of that if I tried. I don't think that's going to put a dent at all in actual social media presence and power. If anything, I think it's still going to continue to grow.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like on the phone usage, I think what it might do is it might make it more competitive to get the eyeballs of that younger generation, right? So I think there will be more investment to capture the time that these kids have, or university young adults have outside of whatever classrooms or blocked off time. So there'll be different techniques, I think, because it'll be so valuable to capture the mind share, right? You've seen like you said, like TikTok and YouTube have now kind of like been ushered into like the top tier social media groups, mostly because of the next generation, I think, like using it. And then some people like me even like shifting my habits, right? Like away from Facebook, Instagram towards, X, LinkedIn, YouTube. I would say those are the ones I use today. So I think you're right. People are going to shift to new platforms. Like you said, I think it's already happened, that it's not necessarily like a central, like watering hole, but it's like, hey, we have our like satellite groups and we're all like communicating in groups, and that's still like a form of social media. So totally see that. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how, because I think like you said, these companies aren't going to go anywhere. They're just going to have to innovate.
Yeah.
So what are they going to do to keep growing the pie will be interesting.
Yeah.
In 2025.
These companies are massive revenue generators for advertisers. They are infrastructurally significant players in internet commerce. All of social media is, the chief end of social media is to sell advertisements, and it always has been. And so as long as that stays unchanged, social media will be here. It just will look differently than than it did in the 2010s. Like I'm hoping that the kind of like mid 2010, late 2010 definition of social media starts to eventually
Fade.
go away and fade away,
Yeah.
for the sole reason that I think it's hampering people from, kind of going back to what I was talking about earlier, like reckoning with the reality of the world that we're living in right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're just measuring social media by how many users are on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or whatever, like, you've got a very incomplete picture of just how big social media it is and how powerful and influential it is. Like, you don't even know the things you don't even know at that point. And so I'm hoping that I'm hoping to see a change in the way we think and talk about this, because we're long overdue for one. I think Christians in particular who write about this and think about this are a bit behind the curve of just like, this is a lot bigger than we may like it to be.
So, like, closing thought here is, how do you feel about 2025? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Both, probably.
Yeah, I would say I'm both. 2025 is going to be a big year for me because it'll be the first time in my entire life where I will not have any school on the horizon. I graduated from seminary last spring and have no plans to go back for an advanced degree beyond a master's anytime soon. And so this is the first time in literally my entire life where I don't have school on the horizon anymore. And I'm a new dad with a, soon to be 7-month-old kid. And so like, I'm very excited for 2025 in general. But when it comes to tech, I think it's hard for me to know what to expect until we get into the first couple of months of the Trump admin and we see how some of his appointments and early decisions, like what that signals and how people respond to that. Like, we just don't know that yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I haven't spent enough time like reflecting on myself. I haven't spent enough time like just building AI applications and stuff on my own. I'm like, you got a lot of balls to juggle. So I think in this year, if you're like, hey, am I going to pick up a side project? For people who build tech and people who don't build tech, I feel like it's pretty accessible with like Cursor and Replit and all of these like agentic developing assistants to like build something. So I'm excited that I think in 2025 there will be more people joining, a creator economy that isn't just creating social media, but it's also
Yes.
creating other things. So I think that'll be really interesting.
Oh man, that's a whole episode right there. Like, the creator economy is not going anywhere. If anything, it's going to follow a similar track to social media, and it's going to expand beyond what we've long kind of thought of as the creator economy. Like, yeah, that's an episode by itself.
Exciting. Well, I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, what would Jesus tech? We gotta figure out how we use this technology to glorify God, find rest, and encourage others.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Joel, I'm be curious to see this time next year, how our predictions stacked out. If you're new to WWT, you should maybe consider subscribing so that you'll get that episode when it comes out here this time next year, and maybe listen to all the other episodes that we put out along the way. But if you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. We are really excited about 2025, and we have big plans for 2025. We already talked about our Discord server. That's something that we rolled out late this last fall, and we're hoping to really invest in a space where like-minded people, Christians who are working in tech or care about tech or concerned about tech, can have a place to talk and learn from one another about how to use tech, find rest, and glorify God. And so if you want to join that Discord server, there will be a link to that in the show notes. And we also are really hoping to keep WWJT an ad-free podcast. I don't know about you, Joel, but I'm kind of sick and tired of the number of advertisements that are now creeping into all of my favorite podcasts. And
yeah.
I like the fact that we don't have to deal with that here because we have listeners who support us financially. But a lot of the stuff that we'd like to do and some of the things we'd hope to do down the road require more financial support, and we need your help to do that. So consider supporting us on Patreon. There are several tiers that you can pick from, and you get special perks for doing so. There's a link to that in the show notes as well. Joel, this has been a good time. I'll look forward to seeing you the next time we record. Andrew, this has been a good time. I know you're not on the call anymore, but I'll say goodbye to you, even though you're not here right now anyway. Hope you all have a great rest of your week.
All right. See ya.